It's now I'm trying to share my screen. Trying to Can't locate my let me see. Can anybody see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
I can see it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone, once again. I'm happy to be here. Um, Thank you once again, Mary, for the invitation. I'm pleased and honored. Um, it's another time again. I've been asked to talk about news writing and journalistic writing. For a quick introduction, for those who are new, uh, I'm Temitope Olaiya, the news editor for the Guardian newspapers. And I've been in journalism for well over a decade now. So I've started from being a campus journalist. After school, I became a freelancer, then we got engaged with the Guardian. So I moved through the ranks from being a freelancer to a reporter to an assistant Lagos City editor, Metro editor, now I'm the news editor. So much of what I'll be sharing today will be a mix of tips we can get anywhere, journalism class, and a few from my own experience being in the field for the last 12 years or so. I welcome everyone once again. It's news and journalistic writing course. So my brief is just to take you through the beginner's guide to news reporting and bit coverage. When we get to bit coverage, I'll talk more about that. But first off, let me get on to the news itself. What is the content for brief meeting? Is just to many of them we are all aware, but just to go run through over them and if there are questions arising, we can discuss them. The first is who is a journalist, then key skills for journalists, ABCs of writing, of news writing, what creates a newsworthy story, news writing guideline, and how to cover a bit effectively. To who is a journalist? Um, just like any concept or any idea, there is not one strict definition of who is a journalist. It's like an elephant. It's like a blind man describing an elephant. So it is what you feel, what you can touch. That is how that's what you describe what you can touch. So depending on who is speaking and depending on the background, whether it's mainstream journalists, broadcasts, print, social media, blogger, depending on the side of the coin, the definition tends to change. But at the baseline of everything, it's a journalist is someone who writes and assembles news stories for the mass media. So the audience now is it's a function of who the audience is. It can be the general mass media, it can be a set of people, it can be within the closed. environment, maybe talking to engineers, talking to professionals, talking to artisans, talking to anyone. But at least the basis of it is you are this you are passing out information to an audience, whether it's a skilled audience, it's a learned audience, or it's a general audience. So and for someone who does that, you have to rely on sources, different avenues of getting the information that you want to pass across. So um, every other thing sums up who is a journalist, a mass communicator, a publisher, a news peddler, an information carrier. So the process of gathering information, distilling it, cross-checking, putting sources together, A, B, C, D, verifying what needs to be verified, and now producing it as a whole to disseminate is what journalism does. So to better understand that function or that role, um, there are two or three quotes that I find interesting, which illustrates the point of what journalism is. The first one is the quote by George Orwell, the author of Animal Farm in 1984. He says, journalism is printing what someone else does not want printed. Everything else is public relations. If you want to explain that, an information, news, a story is actually what someone does not want printed. And that in a way also illustrates the definition of news, which says that bad news travels faster, travels fast than good news. And I think I'm having some feedback. Is it from my end? Okay, I can go on. Okay, most times, okay, most times, good news can be what we term public relations. So something nice about this, about an individual, about a government, about a company. Those are form of good news, PR. But bad news, which travels fast, which people want to hear, is actually what George Orwell is saying here. That is journalism. That is what somebody else does not want printed, what somebody else wants to cover. So your job as a journalist is digging out that information, uncovering what someone else wants covered. That is when you are doing journalism. Everything else, which falls on the good news part of it, is public relations. Then there's also a quote from Malcolm X, the civil rights activist in the US. It says the media is the most powerful entity on earth. Why? Because they have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. And that's power because they control the mind of the masses. Now, this is another definition of journalism coming from another perspective. It's coming from the perspective of those on the outside. George Orwell was trying to define journalism from the perspective of someone inside, someone who is a writer. Now, someone on the outside who is on the receiving end of bad news is viewing journalism and holding media as a whole as a very powerful entity because in the process of doing your job as a journalist, you have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. And what does that simply means? An event can occur and you say uh, so and so has been alleged of so fraud. Now there's a way that report can be written or produced or presented that you've already convicted the alleged individual. And there's a way the same report can be written or presented that you give the alleged individual a soft landing. It all depends on what the journalists do. So that is what my colleague is trying to say, that they have the power to make the innocent guilty and to make the guilty innocent. And the last part of it, which is that they control the minds of the masses. Now, you should understand that this quote was coming from someone or was said at the time that was pre the era of social media. Social media now has revolutionized mass media. At the time it was a controlled form of media where it's either mainstream print, television, or radio. Now with social media, you can self-broadcast, you can be a citizen journalist, you can be a blogger, you can be a content creator. So you can as well pass your own message. But at the base of it is whether you're using social media or you're using mainstream media, you are indirectly trying to control the minds of the masses. So that's why if something happens, a celebrity who is in the eye of the storm, we quickly pick up a camera, sit in front of a camera, and say, "This is our peace of mind. This is what is happening. This is the true state of things." He is also trying to control the mind of the masses and using the form of what? Social media, all our forms of media. Then the third quote I have here uh, is something that I use often to keep reminding myself of why I'm in this. Is one from Nigerian author novelist KDB. It says a story that must be told never forgive silence. Now this kinds of places the journalists with a moral body. You are at the scene of an incident. You are a witness to an incident. Now, bear in mind that many of these people are of the old generation. Uh, they were not really in the age of social media, where you can always report yourself. You can always go live. You can always make a post, go on Twitter, you know. So at that time, at that age, in the era before social media, the body was on the journalists to say, to see, to investigate, and to report. So when you stumble on a story, you have the option of either dropping that story or following and pursuing that story. So that's what okay is trying to say, that a story that must be told, that must be broadcast, whether it's bad news or good news, we not forgive silence. Because by the time you told that story or you hear that story, you don't write it. You have the facts, but you don't want to publish it. Then you are killing that story, which someone else will pick up and express. So those are some of the pillars on which journalism stands. It's a very weighty and serious profession because a single miss or error um, the effect of that can be so disastrous. Fine, with the advent of social media, we also have the advent of fake news. And these days, there seems to be a thin line between the facts, the news, what the other side will call the alternative news, the other side of the news, or what is generally now called to be fake news. And like in all stories, like in all situations, there are three sides. There is the actual facts, there is the side which I would like put it, there's the facts, there's the truth. There's a difference between truth and facts. There's the facts, there's the truth, and there's your own view. Your own view will be different from the truth. The truth will be different from the facts. So, but job of a journalist is that you take all sides. You are on the side of facts, you pursue the truth, you bring yourself less from it, so it's not much of your view, but expert view. So instead of projecting your own view, you are going after those who should know. We'll come to that in a future slide when we need to attribute your stories to sources. So quickly, let me move on to what does a journalist do? Um, there are more than this, but on the basis level, I think this 7 sums up what journalists do. Because you are in search of information, you need to be fed the information you want to disseminate. So you do much of reading press releases from sources, agencies, government, companies, public relations firms. Consume information as much as you can. You read press releases, then you research articles. Uh, in the process of writing press releases or writing news from a press release, you want to get more information that may not be contained in what you have or in the information given to you by your source. So you research on it, go online, what had been said about this particular issue or topic. Get more expert opinion on it. So after taking up that press release, you research on what you want to write about. You establish and maintain contacts. Now, without a journalist is as good as his contact or sources. No man is an island. No man is God. There's no superpower anywhere. There's no super journalist. We all rely on sources of information. It's an information you need is the fuel you need to move. Just like a vehicle, we need fuel, we need petrol to be able to move. So it's the information you get, from trusted sources, from people in authority, people who should know, people who are at the helms of affairs, at the place where matters are decided. They may decide to address the press generally and call for a press conference, or they may decide to have a friend. This thing is not being said, but I think they should know. An example is like, okay, the federal government is being jittery about the coming protests in August, and they are trying to do all they can to stop the protests. In several meetings being held at the presidency, at the State House, with traditional rulers, with security agencies, with people who should matter. Somebody who you have as a source will decide to call you up and tell you that, do you know something just happened? The president or the minister or so and so is meeting with some influencers who are going to go on social media to do this, to do that. That is an information. Or do you know that there are plans to arrest whoever will come out to protest? That's an information. In the open, the government will come to tell you, please be guided. we don't support violence, you know, be law and be a law-abiding citizen. You don't disturb anybody and all that. But behind the scene, there may actually be an order to say anybody who comes out to protest at so location should be arrested. So it takes someone who is in the know to inform someone who will publish that kind of information. So that's the essence of always maintaining and establishing contacts. Then you have interview sources. You are working on a story. You want to write about anything of interest, health, sports, you need to go after those who know, who have the knowledge in interview sources. Then attend events, programs, conferences, uh, seminars, where you meet stakeholders, meet people who are knowledgeable about events around, and you exchange contacts, and you introduce yourself. They know, okay, this person is a journalist, and what else? The key, which is writing, editing, and submitting your reports, you know. And this last one is very important because you might get a press release, you might get an information from a source, from a contact, from somebody you interviewed, or you might attend an event and maybe the guest speaker makes a statement and just say Nigeria is owing so trillion, or Nigeria is going to take a loan so billion, or Dangote refinery is, you need to take this last line very important, because if you run with that kind of story without verifying, it can lead to something grievous, if not libel. It might be fake news. A recent example about why you need to verify was I think 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, Daily Trust went with a screaming headline on the Samoa agreement. Before that report, some weeks back, months back, there have been some agitation by CSOs, NGOs, that there's a plan by EU, the European Union, to coalesce African countries, the Caribbean, and some Asian countries into some kind of agreement whereby it will be a bilateral relation, trade, easy travel, migration, loans, and all that. But at the base of it is that those governments will submit, will be soft in allowing same-sex, LGBT, lesbians, gays, and all that. You know, we already know in the Western society, uh, they are liberal. They are open. You can be what you want to be. Nobody cares. Not in your face. You can live your life. But there's still some kind of cultural restrictions in some parts of Africa, many parts of Africa. You know, in fact, in Nigeria, there's a law against that, which prohibits 14 years imprisonment for same-sex relationships and marriage. You know, Daily Trust went to town with a story that the federal government has signed the Samoa Agreement, which in effect will mean giving a soft landing for lesbians, gays, and same-sex relationships, to be practiced. You know, it was such a very burning, serious story that they published without attribution. No, sorry, without verification. Because immediately the government came out to deny, they brought out the agreement that was signed. Everything was read from A to Z. There was no place. Though there were a few clauses, but the clause did not say you have to, or gays must be recognized, lesbians must be recognized. No, it's just that for countries who have them in their laws, for countries who have them in their own status, it does not stop countries who don't have from accessing this agreement. That's just the reference to that, But the officials have gone to town to say Nigeria has signed this agreement, and that means you are now binding. Same-sex marriages and relationships is not allowed in the country. You know, that's taken it to the extreme because a simple call to the Minister of Information would have verified it, would have debunked the story. Even if you decide to still run with the story, you could still have run that story with their with their reaction. You see, this is what we have. They've signed this agreement. We suspect that it contains this and this, but the federal government has denied to say no, it's not like that. Simple end of story. But by running to town without verifying, it was really, was really a bad journalism, if I must say. Maybe over time they may they may turn out to be true, but you don't take that risk. You must verify your information and state it as it is. This is what we got. This is what people are saying, but this is what the government is saying or denying. It's not after you have run the story and that's saying, okay, government has now said, come out to say, no, it's not, that should not be the way it should go. So the next slide, in summary, what journalists does read press releases, research articles, establish and maintain contact, interview sources, attend events, write, edit, and submit copies, and verify statements. Before I go to the next slide, I just want to, this is an example of when um, an event happens and a news organization decides, to go beyond the news and project an agenda. It's and this is if I go back to the quote from George Orwell, George Orwell or Malcolm X, the front page from the New European explains what Malcolm X was trying to say, that they can make the guilty innocent and make the innocent guilty. Now, this one was the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. But look at the headline. The bullet hit Trump, but it killed Joe Biden. Now, looking at the sequence of events, you could say this was appropriately well captured, very apt, you know. But if you take a closer look, if you zoom in on that edition, it was published the third day, second or the third day after the assassination attempt. Joe Biden only stepped down from the race just on Sunday. So it's like this was an agenda that was set, both in the Democrats and within people who are not even Republicans. Some felt Biden was too old to contest that election. And after the debates, some felt, no, 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 this man should just go and retire and rest and enjoy his retirement. Then the assassination happened, and um, it was like Trump was on the acceptance, was having the opinion rating was going high. Luck was on his side. He had just escaped death. He's likely being projected to be the next incoming president. You know, whatever maybe his baggage and all, things were looking good for Donald Trump. That was at the time when this newspaper captured this. And the bullet hit Trump, but it killed Joe Biden. And events that followed, events that followed later showed that the current president had to withdraw from that race. So there are times when interpretative journalism, it will be like prophesying um, what foretelling what is to come. But it's also a way of tweaking the information you have and setting an agenda. An agenda was also set with this one from this was July 6th, no way to run a country. This is someone who it's definitely whoever uses this is someone who can't work properly using the aid of this stance to move. And you have the seal of the President of the United States. Definitely, they were referring to Joe Biden here. There's this one from this day. This is actually an advertorial, a death sentence. If you zoom it well, the advertorial is more about I think the harmful effect of sugar. So they are trying to make a campaign against for the government to um, introduce more taxes for sugary products to prevent diabetes. Then you are the one up there from Daily Trust, Weekend Trust, Bloody Gold, unraveling link between mining and banditry and illegal mining of gold in I think Safara also. Some closely related to it is the lead story from Guardian here. Nigeria's $1.8 billion gold reserve mine into private pockets. So these are how news media can set an agenda. You have an information, you have a news, it has been verified, but you can set an agenda, that to make government to respond. So let's go back to also continue to um, what makes up makes a journalist, the key skills for a journalist to have. Um, the first is enthusiasm. You must love what you do. You must really, really, really love what you do. Because when you love what you do, when you enjoy what you're doing, you won't really see it as work. Because along the way, there are times, there are situations where you feel like, why am I in this? Is my life not as risky? Uh, you do a story, people are reacting, people are calling you, people are criticizing you, and you're like, do I want to continue this path? But if you don't have that first love, if you are not enthusiastic about what you're doing, you you leave it off and pursue other interests. So followed by that is stamina. You must have grit. You must be someone who is resolute and sure that come what way, no matter the obstacle, you're ready to stand and face any challenge. Closely related to that is determination, then confidence. Confidence is key. Uh, you need to walk up to people and ask questions. Questions, questions, questions. You are digging, you are working on the story, you are trying to investigate something, you want to verify something. If you are scared or shy about walking up to someone to say, hello, sir, I need an information about this. Is this true? Is this correct? Then you are not ready to be a journalist. You must have that confidence. You must persevere. You must have the quality of perseverance because there are times when you knock on doors and what you get is no. So for each time someone tells you no and you withdraw, then you have no story to write. You must keep knocking. If this door closes, check around for another route, another way. There must be other means by which to get to what you want to do, where you are going to. Then the key of it, which is excellent oral and written skills. So it depends on where you fall into, whether you're in print, broadcasts, whether you want to express yourself by writing or by, you must work on that. You must work on that. Your writing skills must be top notch. Your oral skills too must be A plus. You know, is a work in progress. It's not as if you have to check everything to be excellent before you start. But the thing is, as you get along, as you keep pushing, you are developing that part of you. Things you do to develop your writing skills is reading every day. You know, watching the broadcast news, um, local, international, being conversant with what's happening in that world, in that place. So that way you you improve on your written and oral skills. Then interpersonal skills is what you need to to cut your sources. You know, you need sources, you need contacts, you need people to give information, and it is the interpersonal skills that will open that doors for you. Then lastly on my slide here is familiarity with technology tools. In the age of social media, you must be conversant with not AI per se, but tools that will help your work. Um, not everything is physical. Just going on social media, following contact on Twitter, Facebook, you can get your information. Somebody you're trying to get his contact, can be on social media, and what you are trying to hack has been posted, maybe shared on his timeline. So being familiar with technology tools will also help. Will also help in your skills as a journalist. Now, I come to the nitty-gritty of news writing. The first, the ABC of news writing is accuracy. You can't be wrong on this one because this is the pillar on which the other two stands. If your information is not accurate, then there's no point writing that story. Like I just mentioned about the Samoa Agreement. That information was true. The federal government signed that agreement, they didn't announce it. I think they signed it 4 or 5 days before that story was published. That information was true. Government didn't deny. But what was not accurate was that the agreement was contained the provision allowing for same-sex relationship, marriages, the LGBTQ and all that, that was an inaccurate information, and that messed up the whole story because people will be wondering, why didn't we get a press release from the presidency? Why didn't the spokesman announce that this agreement has been signed? Why was it done in secrecy if there was nothing to hide? So on that score, Daily Trust was big on that. They hit the mark. But hitting that mark, one or two inaccuracies in that report now messed up the whole information. So it shows how important it is not to miss in the first one, the ABC of news writing. Accuracy is very key, because the more times you have discovered to have published false information, the less the public trusts or your media. When they see another thing the next time, they say, oh, were they not the ones who carried that fake news about so and so? So if you want to keep building on public trust, you must guard what you publish, the information you pass out to ensure that it is accurate. The B of news writing is brevity. Now, this is where news is different from other forms of writing. News is not a feature. News is not a text. It's not a it's not a long story. Short, pam pam pam, to the point. You know, brevity is another key of news writing. words that are not, you can come out with the news, then now do a follow-up, that's called a news feature. Now do a follow-up and talk to experts, background it with other research materials. That is feature writing. But news is straight to the point. Like what people will define as a miniskirt. That's what news is. Short enough to cover the subject matter and long enough to initiate interest. Just the way miniskirt is, you know. So brevity is a key point in news writing, and the third is clarity. You can't excuse or sacrifice clarity for brevity. You can't decide to say you want it to be as short as possible, and we don't understand what you are saying. So as in few details as you can, in brief sentences as you can, but in with most cogent information you want to pass across, there must be clarity in your news reporting. And the report must not be, distorted with jargons. When I mean jargons, I mean technical jargons. Now, you can be talking about, you can be writing about some specialized area like health, tech, law, those field where they can't talk without the lingua of that profession. When you are doing a news report, you have to do away with all those jargons, all those medical terms, all those legal terms, all those Latin words and all that. To be clear, because news is for general consumption. If you are now writing for that journal, you can now go into detailed detailed technical terms and all that. But for general news, it must be accurate, it must be brief, and it must be clear. Now, what makes a story newsworthy? Uh, Before I go into what makes a story newsworthy, I just want to share an example of how a story can be so impactful. The the image on the left was the report that went viral. I think it was December. Yeah, just shortly before we crossed into the new year. A young reporter from Daily Nigeria who went undercover in the Republic and I was able to get a degree which he used to enroll in our NYC scheme. Of course, you are aware of that story, so I don't need to go into details of it. But it's what the discovery of that report was so shocking that you were like, oh, so why the hell? Why waste your time with hassle, with strike today, shut down tomorrow, and spend 5 years for a 4-year course when you can actually get a degree in 2 months, and still serve, at the end of the day, you brandish around foreign university, you know. The impact of that story was so massive that it forced, now that's the image on the right, it forced the federal government to suspend the accreditation of all degree certificates from West African countries. That's just an example of a recent example of the impact a story can have, a newsworthy story. So what makes a story newsworthy? Um, I was just talking about that with this analogy. It is impact. Impact. There are stories everywhere, but for stories to attract and arrest attention, it must have an impact. And what does it mean to have an impact? It must affect a larger number of people. So if the story, if If it's just a general everyday report, man who rapes teen, teacher rapes a student, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. It's not that it's not you can't report it, but it's not newsworthy. There are rape cases every day, you know. But stories that have impacts, that could affect a lot of people. So if you say a school principal, for instance, impregnates a student, now it's different from man rapes in the sense that the impact of that story, in the first place, you are looking at a school principal, meaning is in charge of so many students. In their hundreds, if not tens of thousands, in their hundreds. So if you could do this to a student, then it means the life of other students, other female students are not safe. That is talking about impact. You can see that that is different, and that's why stories about sex for mark will never go out of fashion. A lecturer um, making out with students, threatening to fail and all that because of impacts. If it's just a regular person on the street, okay, rapes this, rapes wife, rapes child and all that, it's not just general routine stories. But when a story tends to affect more people than those involved, the impact of it makes that story newsworthy. Um, then the next one about what makes a story newsworthy is proximity. Uh, what I mean by proximity is that um, the reports, people have to relate, people within that society or community, they have to relate to that story. If you go on social media, if you go on Google, go on Twitter, there are stories everywhere. And that's why the use of AI, social media platforms, they tend to use your location, your IP address, your the sites you visit most often, the things you check out, to bring some reports to you. So you are in Lagos, Nigeria, and you go on Twitter, you go on Facebook, you'll be seeing feed from reports around you, reports of people shared, You will see less of reports about Mexico, about Kenya, except if it's a major story like the protest and all that, or maybe you have people on your contact who are talking about it and retweeting and sharing and all that. But generally, it's because of proximity. The news you consume, if it's not, if the proximity is not there, is so why am I bothered? There's a flood in Bangladesh. Why am I bothered? It's different from there's a flood in a Jos, because the first thing to you is that reminds me, I think I have a friend or so in Plateau State, just to explain proximity. And there's what we call Afghanistanism in journalism. You leave all the issues that is happening around Nigeria. Protest is coming, inflation is rising, food crisis, the economy is bad, dollar rising against the naira. You leave all those issues, and you are talking about something's happening in Sweden. Sweden people are marching for gay rights, or it doesn't relate because the proximity is sort of apart. So you can come across a story, for instance, of a march in Sweden for gay rights. How does that concern someone who is in Nigeria? Well, you come across a story about why people should not protest or why people should protest next week. That's what I mean by proximity. So that's what makes a story newsworthy, depending on the location and where the audience is. Then you have prominence. Now, prominence means um, who are the characters involved in that story, in that report. And that's why anything about celebs, about public figures, government officials will always make the news. When anything happens to Bola Tinubu, Governor Sanwo-Olu, Seyi Makinde, it will always make the news. Anything happens to social media influencers, celebrities, artists, it will always make the news because of prominence. Because famous people, they have higher news value than ordinary citizens. The only time ordinary citizens will make the news or be in the news is only when they do extraordinary things. So, like when an example was this lady that attempted to break the Guinness Book of Records for the longest cooking in the best. She's just an ordinary lady who did an extraordinary thing. So she's in the news. So anything that happens after that, uh, she's going out with this, she's saying this, she just bought a car, makes the news because she has now become a famous person. So that explains uh, why a news or why a story or why a report is newsworthy. Another factor is conflict. Conflict. Now, it's just like when you're watching a movie. If there's no giz, there's no action. You are not, you don't want to go further. You don't want to watch to the end if there's no suspense. So stories that involve some conflict, some maybe not actually violence, but some suspense. Let me put it that way. It may not be actual conflict, but suspense, uh, intrigues. Like a thriller. The same way you are interested to know more, the same way your audience or your readers will want to know more. So stories are involved. That's why that's posts on social media. You always trend. You always make the news. This personality is attacking this personality, or this personality unfollowed this personality. Those kind of gifts, you make the news. It may be soft, it may not be the hard news, but it will always get some interest. Then you have human interest. That's people like to know stories about that people. They may not generally be successful people, but there are ordinary people who have they may not have done extraordinary things, but they have some unusual stories. The unusual stories. So the human interest element in the story will make it newsworthy. There's maybe someone who is physically challenged or is having four wives. So you're wondering, someone who is fit and healthy is still managing to hold a family or hold a spouse, but someone who is physically challenged is having a harem of beautiful ladies. So the human interest of an unusual situation, you know, of course, being physically challenged is not that it's nobody's problem, but it's not strange. It's not strange. But being something extra to being physically challenged, makes it a newsworthy idea for a story. Then closely related to human interests is oddity, something strange, or something odd, or something new. Just like when I mentioned Linda Bassi breaking the Guinness World Record, and because of that, people attempted it, even in different categories. They just want to hit that limelight to be in the news. Because novelty or oddity makes the news. Now, if anybody now attempts to break, like some people did and failed, to bring leaders back, Bassi's uh, record, it won't gather as much interest as when she did it. Because she did it, she went to the news followed up the event. So any catch up is just one of those things. Just seeking attention. Just ignore. You have to look out for things that are heard around you. And a way to explain that is the famous saying that when a dog bites a man, it's no news. Or it becomes news when a man bites a dog because it's the other way around. And that makes it odd. Um, coming to news right now, since we just discussed what makes a story newsworthy, what makes a report news. Now, how do you write the news? Don't forget the ABC, accuracy, brevity, and clarity. Now, how do you structure them together? And the famous one is the inverted pyramid. That's now putting the story together. Now, it's like someone who's in the kitchen and wants to prepare a meal. You have all your ingredients, how to put them at what stage and at what time to make the seasoning really rich and come out effectively. So it's the same with news. In the inverted pyramid structure is what is used across the world, except it's not news. If it's news, it has to be the inverted pyramid. And what does that mean? It means a triangle turned upside down. And to explain that concept is that generally, just like when you watch a movie, it's a sequence from scene to scene to scene to scene, from plot gets intrigued and all that at the time, flashback and go. And that's generally the way people tell stories. They tell stories in sequence, in scenes, plots, chronologically. But it's different for news writing because you don't have that time and space to take readers through that journey. So you start from the most important to the less important. That's why it's a triangle turned upside down, inverted pyramid. So it's and why is it so? Because people have a short attention span. Even in the newspaper, as once I flip the pages, there are very few reports that I read to the end. Some I just read beyond the first paragraph, some only the headline, some the headline, first paragraph, some, depending on how interesting the report is, I read further. And some, depending on how interested and invested I am in the reports, I read to the end. So bear that in mind that so that's the average appetite of newsreaders. So you have to make sure that the most important, the most vital of those information are in the opening remarks, the opening paragraph, first two paragraph. So if people need more information, they read further. So that's the way you arrange your news. Put the most important information at the top, then the rest can follow. And doing that, you have your lead, lead report. So that's the most important information first. Now, that has to be the most what you are trying to pass across. News something fresh. Even if it's an old report, but there's an update. That is the news. So something is already in the news, but there's an update. There's a developing story. There's a developing. There's a new development around what is already in the news. That one too will also be part of what will be contained in your lead paragraph. So that's the angle from which the story is coming from. So an example that I have here is just like an event is happening, and you now say uh, so group or society is having its annual general meeting or so. That is not news. That is not news. But the news of that information is that so decision has been taken at so annual general meeting held yesterday or held so. You have taken out a critical aspect of what was said or shared at that meeting, and that has been your lead. Not that, okay, Zenith Bank held its AGM. That is not news. What will be news is um, shareholders will share dividend, or because of the state of the economy, uh, bank declared loss instead of profits, at the AGM. That is the news. That they're having AGM is not the news, but that something was said that is fresh, that people need to know. That is what is news. Then another one is gathering your facts. Now, no, I mentioned this earlier. In gathering your facts, you must be able to distill between fact and opinion. Now, opinion doesn't mean that opinion are not necessary, but you can't build your story around opinion. You can only build your story around the facts. Then you now look for supporting or opposing opinion to the facts. That does like expanding a copy, and that fact must be attributed to a source. You can't just say somebody told you that, because you are not expected as a journalist. You can't just say, I just know that so person is something happened to so person. Who told you? By so person who is a close friend to so person. You have attributed that information to someone. So the attribution is actually key to support your facts in a news writing. If not, it will just become gossip. And that's the difference between social media and serious mainstream media. Social media, Insta blog, or Linda KG, or all these bloggers can just put up something. It doesn't mean many of the things they put out are not true. It doesn't mean. But because they don't attribute it, there's no source. So even those who are affected, when they deny it, the matter will just die like that because you have not provided facts or attributed to somebody who should know. Now you can't say something is happening uh, to a public figure and you'll be quoting somebody who's distant. For you to see something happen to a public figure, is either the person said it himself or somebody in the circle of that person. Because you have to attribute that information or that a piece of fact to someone. And that is essentially why news writing is different from opinion or gossip. Uh, then I think we are done with general news writing. Now, um, you know, news writing, journalism is like swimming in the ocean. It's a wide, just like www, World Wide Web. It's a wide world out there. You need to carve a niche. You need to have a trademark. You need to limit yourself to a space to be very effective. And that brings about what we call beat journalism. You need to be on a beat, stay on a story, and cover that beat as effective as you can. So it's like the image of someone drilling a well. You drill down, you dig down. The focus is being narrowed down to a point. It's different from when somebody who is farming. That's you have a large space of land, hectare of land, and you're just plowing, just farming. It's a different result. It's different from when you dig, you are at a point you are digging deep. So being on the beach or having a niche, having a space you are devoted to is as important as being a good journalist. It doesn't mean you don't have interests in other areas. As journalists, you have to be a little of about almost everything. But you must have a strong point in one or two field. You know, while you have a general idea or general coverage of general bits. You know, so that is the first place to start. You want to be a soft journalist, or you want to be a hardcore journalist? You want to write about entertainment, write about sports, or about business, economy, politics, general news. You want to focus on people, celebrity, or you want to focus on government, politicians. You can't just be rambling and be boxing the hair and just be walking around in a general space. You must have a niche, find an interest, have a bit, have have a field, they now cover that field extensively. And that's what being in a bit means, you know. And how do you go about that? First, you learn everything you can. So you decided, okay, sports you want to do, it's business, it's fashion, it's music, it's film, Nollywood, it's politics, it's judiciary, anything. You first of all have, and it must be aligned to your interests, so that getting sources, getting contacts, meeting people will not be difficult for you. You know, find out find your before you find your fit first, must find that calling and find that bit. Then you now find your fit in that bit. You know, which is starting by learning everything you can, getting to know the players, who is who, the go-to people, the stakeholders, the experts, you know, those who are knowledgeable, those who are the encyclopedia of that field, you know, get to know them virtually or physically, follow them on social media, read up on them, consume whatever they say, share, find them somewhere. You might need it for future reference, you know. That's how to. So you can see that you can't do this for the general bits. You cannot say you can't be following stakeholders in sports, entertainment, politics, you know, you'll be lost. So after getting the section you want to focus on, then you get to know the players who are in that field. And gradually build your trust and cultivate contacts, meet people, attend events, follow people around that space. Then remember your readers. Now, this explains what I said earlier about when you are putting your news together. Try to limit the professional jargons in those news reports. Um, every profession has its language. So when you are writing within that field, you can be writing on those terms. But when you are writing a general report, it has to be as plain in general, regular English as possible. You know, so remember your readers. Then this is also maybe funny, tricky, but it helps you know more. Ask a lot of dumb questions. Because it's when you ask those questions, it's in the response. The person will feel happy to educate you. Wow, you mean you don't know this? Now let me tell you this. It's just an avenue to learn more. So don't be shy of asking questions, whether dumb or critical questions. Just keep asking questions. Then research social media. You know, there's a trove of information and wealth of knowledge in social media, particularly when you have identified the niche you are looking after, the, the sector you want to focus on. Then learn the jargon, the language of that profession, of that sector. You know, I remember there was one time I was reading, I once in a while used to follow tennis, Serena Williams, and all that. So I was reading news reports about um, US Open, French Open, Wimbledon, and I discovered that I was not understanding what was being written because it was written in the language of that sport, you know. watching it, you see, okay, they are serving, this is serve, this person is returning and all that. But when they are writing it, it's like, just like when you are reading a report about golf. It's not like in general everyday language, because the English can be regular English. It's not as if it's a vocab, but the terms are different. What a phrase means in general language may be different in a field, in a sector. And so, as a journalist, you must learn the jargon, learn the language of that sector you are in. Be curious, be inquisitive, always ask questions, then read exhaustively. Keep reading, always reading, always reading. Then learn the law. This is also very important. Learn the law. What I mean by learn the law is learn the rules and play by the rules. There are some things people can take for granted, and it's beginning to catch up on most people who use social media these days. It's fine to call out people, it's fine to rant on social media, but you must understand that you can run foul of the law by just ranting a post or maybe picking reports on social media. There's what we call the cybercrime law. You can be accused of defamation if you don't have your facts. You can be accused of cyber stalling if you are just picking up on an individual, picking up on an individual. Can be accused of cybercrime. There are different forms. So these are the things as journalists must first of all arm yourself with. Learn the law, understand the rules. Understand the rules. You know, Sometimes when you talk to sources and people tell you you're speaking off record, respect it. Means whatever they're telling you or sharing with you is out of trust, is not to be to be used. And if it's to be used, then it's to be, if it says off record and you feel it's an information that you need to add to your report, then you don't have to disclose your source. There's a source who pleaded anonymity. So those are some of the rules you can pick here and there. Then, for instance, let's say you are writing about, there are times you do it, okay, like an example I used the other time about rape. You know, Sometimes when people are tagged minor, whether they are the offender or they are the victim, there's a minor act, there's a law that protects minors. You can't disclose them. You can, even if you are going to use pictures, you have to blur their face. You can't use their real name because they are not yet at the age of responsibility. So they may not even know what is happening to them. You can go with the story. So those are uh, little bits about the rules, about the law, um, in writing, general law of writing. You who allege must state the facts. So if you make a case against someone, you must hear that side, that person's side of the story. You must call up that person, reach out to that person. So person has alleged, you did this, said this. Is it true? What's your response? So that there will be balance. So those are under the lending law. They will know the rules, so that um, not following the rules will not mess up the report you are trying to do. So I think I can end it here and give the room for questions. Anybody who has questions. So Mary, over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So if we have questions at this point, please can we quickly speak up? Thank you so much.
All right, good afternoon. Good evening, sir. I
Good
really
evening.
appreciate this class. It has been a very wonderful class, and I really appreciate you for it, sir. So, sir, my question is, sir, how as journalists, how do we deal with persecution? These days in the age of, you gave a definition according to George Orwell that journalism is publishing what somebody else doesn't want published. Of course, there will be backlash when we are publishing what some people don't publish. How do we deal with these backlashes? Because I myself am a campus journalist in school, and we often get threats from students, maybe student politicians, when we write about some of their activities or some things they are not doing right. So in that situation, how, and I know that in the outside world it will be much more worse. How do we deal with such persecution, sir?
I think the only thing I can say to that is your best defense, your best defense is to be on the side of truth. You must have your facts. Third, yeah, there's something about journalism which is say that if you are in doubt, leave out. So if you come across an information or somebody tells you something about an individual and you're trying to find out, you're trying to investigate it. If in the process of investigating or verifying the information, you are not so sure or you don't have an evidence by virtue of maybe there's a document, there's a maybe a screenshot, there's a note, or there's a voice, there's a recording or something. If you don't have, so it depends on some information can just be trivial, some can be weighty. So, but when it's a weighty allegation or information and you don't have evidence, the best advice is to leave out. If you're in doubt, leave out. Because the best way to defend yourself is to have an evidence of what you want to publish. And so when you have the evidence, then you can publish and be damned. But if you don't have the evidence and you're called out, you know, uh, some people might not be nice. Some might be nice. They just call you out or write a rejoinder. Some people may not be nice and they go the form of threat. But what I've known over time is that when people know you don't have the information or you don't have the evidence, they become emboldened. When people are not sure if you have the evidence, they won't threaten you. Because they know the more they threaten you, the more the more they force you to come up with more with dirty details that they're even trying to hide in the first place. So the safest ground to stand upon is to harm yourself with evidence of what you want to publish. You may not necessarily publish the evidence alongside the report, but just have it. So someone tells you something, you record that person. Someone is sharing something with you before it's deleted, screenshot it. There's what somebody saying something. Please help me. I need a file. I need a copy of that document. If you can just snap it, or maybe the first page or no, that's just have it and keep it to you. So that when issues arise or when um, reactions are beginning to come, oh, it's true, it's a lie, you're trying to tarnish my image, it's the work of my detractors, blah, blah, blah. You're safe because you know what you have. So that was why I said in the first place about confidence, perseverance, being sure of yourself. In the first place, if you are a timid person, then this job is not for you. In the first place, you must learn to grow a thick skin. You must learn to be criticized. Like I said, much of journalism is bad news. Everything else is public relations. So when you're trying to write bad things about other people, no, not bad things, the bad side, the negative side of other people, expect to be criticized. So and the only way you can even enjoy what you're doing is when you have such feedback. So you need such feedback to even know you pass the message across. But if you are not sure of the information you put out, you don't have any evidence, you can hold on. By the time the reactions are coming, you are also doubting yourself. And that's why sometimes you see, you read a story, by the time you go back to that page or so, it has been brought down. Because Happy show there was no evidence of what they actually published. But if you are sure of your facts, why not? the more people talk about it and share it, the more it makes you popular and makes the story go viral. So the only advice I can give is if especially when it's about a weighty matter, always you don't need to rush. If it takes time to get, you can keep at it, keep digging, keep pushing. When you have a slice of one or evidence or two, then you can publish what you've gathered. But if you rush to press, you also rush to pull it down or rush to face some criticism and questions.
Okay.
Thank you very
All right.
much, sir.
I have question. All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Temitope. We really appreciate this your very apt and concise presentation. I enjoyed it from start to finish. So I have two questions that I'll put forward at the same time. So you could just take your time to clear them. One is I would like you to explain more on the concept of Afghanistanism, like you mentioned. Just throw more a little light on it. That's my first question. The second one is why is the media called the fourth realm? And who are the first, second, and the third realm? Thank you.
Let me start with the Afghanistanism. And let me make an example with let me assume you're a campus journalist. So let me make an example with say University of Ibadan. Now I think there were reports about protests over energy crisis and I think electricity bill and increase in school fees. Those are issues that are local to University of Ibadan, at least for the past 1 or 2 weeks. Also, if you are the um, campus journalist, what we can term as Afghanistanism is to leave the issues. And when they are developing issues, you don't report it and just go away. You stay on the story, their development. Okay, let's say there was a protest, the school authorities have said students must pay this fee, blah, blah, blah. Students are protecting. Okay, the authorities came out with a release to say, okay, no, okay, you have come to a middle ground, and it's, their development. It may just be okay. The development may be that after the protest, after the agreement reached with the student leaders and the school management on what to be done, 2 weeks after, the agreement has been breached. A part of it is not being, so staying on the story is actually what your readers, that's the immediate environment, which is students in the UI, we want to look out for. What's the latest? Hope they will not cancel this agreement. Hope students will not riot again. So leaving that issue to now uh, focus on a lecturer who was caught harassing a student in University of Calabar. Is what I mean by Afghanistan. On the face value, okay, it's a general news, okay, it happens everywhere. Well, by the time the focus is now more on what is happening in University of Calabar, and you have left what is happening in University of Ibadan, or your state, Ibadan Polytechnic, College of the institutions around, you know, is then remaining you are practicing Afghanistanism. So there's your means your report is lacking in proximity because what is happening in University of Calabar can be in general news. Anybody can get it anywhere, social media, except if it's so absurd that this very very strange thing just happened in the hair. But if it's just the general report, it was like I'm more interested. I'm a reader. I'm a student. I'm more interested in what is happening in Ibadan. is the government giving out bursary to students? Is the student loan as my university have just included our information to the NEFund or what's that agency that's coordinating student loan, as our school be as our course be accredited, for social course. No, so those are the ones that will be interested to the immediate environment. So that's what I mean by not going for Afghanistan is because you just want to publish, feed people with information. You leave what people will most likely need or go after to what's happening just in far-flung areas that proximity is not close to where the audience is. So then talking about the fourth estate of the realm, generally, is my concept, my belief of that concept, is that in a democracy, although which is still true, in a democracy, you have the three arms of government. You have the executive, you have the legislator, the lawmakers, and you have the judiciary. Now, media, the three arms of government, they check on each other in an ideal democracy. The lawmakers, the um, National Assembly should check on the executive. Otherwise, you have a dictatorship. And the judiciary should come in to check whether the executive or the legislature. Then you now have the media as the eye of the public in those three arms of government, making all the three arms of government to be accountable to the general public. That is in that sense. But in its original sense, in the original meaning of the fourth estate of the realm, it's about the way the medieval society was structured. In the medieval society, as the era before the previous civilization that brought us to the 19th, 20th century. In the medieval society, the arms of government or the arms of power was actually the church, was actually especially in Europe and Latin America. So you have the clergymen, the clerics. They were those who are in power. The remnant of that is what you still have in the Catholic Church. You have the Vatican. The Vatican is just a small state within Italy, within Rome, but it stands on its own. The Vatican has its own self-governing body. Italy, or the politicians in Italy, does not have a say in what happens in the Vatican. So that is in that light. So the clerics, using Italy as an example, or use Catholic as an example, the leader of that movement is the Pope. So the clerics were respected. They were lords. Then you now have the those who are like the princes, those who are like the what we can call the Otumbas. So an example of that one is let me now go to United Kingdom, where you have monarchical uh, monarchical rulers. So you have the Queen presently. Before it was the Queen. God save the Queen. She passed on last year, 2 years ago. Then it was inaugurated last year. So you have King Charles. So that is a monarchy, as a monarchy form of government. So everybody in that line, family branch of the monarchy is another form of power. So those are the people who are powerful. So they are like elites, the nobles, the kings. There's a word they use for, you are not a true born. You are not by blood. It has to be by blood. You must be part of the noble family by blood or married into that family to hold that kind of power. That's another level that's following after being from the clerics. Then now the general people, the commoners, the general public. Those ones are what we call the masses. When they use the word masses, everybody. So you are not a king, you are not from the lineage of the king, you are not from the well-respected clergyman, archbishop, ruler, pope, and all that. Then you are the masses. So that's the three realm. Yes. So the only other realm that was given such power to hold, also in the sense of when I explained in the earlier one, to hold the other realm to account is the media, fourth estate. That's the first estate of the realm of power. It's the media. The media now, that power has been so decentralized because of social media. But at the time when whatever the journalist says or publish is law, it's only those who are in the other two parts that can in a bit be comfortable. But whenever the media comes against any of them, sometimes you will see people think sheep abandon their throne and just go into exile. They just abdicate their throne. Is the force of the fourth estate, the media. Whenever the media opens up on either the cleric, the clergy, or the monarchs, the family of the nobles, or the commoners, that's for the general public. So that's the general public. So it was from that the sense of that power that these people are just different. These people hold others to account, and they exercise that power and the funny thing is they exercise that power not for the clerics who already have their own power, or for the nobles who are already on the throne. They exercise that focus of the realm for the masses, for the general public. So they are the only ones who can withstand the other two realms. So because at that time and in that generation, there was nothing like protest. You cannot do a Luther. The general public cannot revolt. The monarchy or those who are in charge of the constitution will come after you. But the only people who can stand them in the face and talk about them are the media. So that's why they were called the fourth estate of power of the realm. So in the modern day civilization now, where you have democracy and everything, so it's now they are now the fourth arm of government after the executive, judiciary, and legislature.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Well understood.
So, do we have any other further questions? And if not, thank you so much, sir, for this very, very wonderful lecture. And thank you so much for honoring our invite. Thank you so much. And then for the interns, please, I have an announcement. We have Thrive with Babs coming up on Sunday. It is very, very mandatory for each and every one of us. So please ensure you're there, and also share the broadcast with your contacts and your friends. You can bring them when coming or when joining the program. Thank you so much for this week's plenary session. See you guys next week. We have another guest facilitator for next week, Friday. So ensure to attend. Thank you so much, Mr. Tucker Templar. God bless you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Good night. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Ma.